Welcome to Health Talk. My name is Sharon, and today our topic is on Crohn's disease. We're also going to look at lupus and the leaky gut. Today we have a special guest with us. We have Dr. Sonia Carroll, who is my mentor, very educated, knows the body inside out, knows all the herbs, and knows how to deal with sicknesses and illnesses. So welcome to Health Talk, Dr. Sonia. And today we are so thankful and we are so happy that you can join us today. Okay, so I'm just going to give an overview.
It's a pleasure. Looking forward to it.
Thank you. Thank you. And I hope our guests will enjoy the time that we spend here together. Okay, so we're going to do an overview on Crohn's, lupus, and leaky gut. Crohn's disease is a chronic inflammation and ulceration of one or more sections of the digestive tract. It can be from the mouth to the anus. Long-lasting condition is an autoimmune disease with no cure. Lupus is also an inflammatory disease of the connective tissue or autoimmune disease. The body is attacking itself, also no cure. Leaky gut is a digestive condition in which bacteria and toxins are able to leak through the intestinal walls. Let's look at some of the symptoms for Crohn's disease: loss of energy, appetite, chronic diarrhea, rectal bleeding, pain in the abdomen, excess fat in the stool, pale, bulky stool, malnutrition results. Okay, let's look at lupus: fever, fatigue, arthritis, pain in the joints, or skin lesions. The leaky gut, prone to infections, fever, fatigue, headaches. Okay, so we'll have Dr. Sonia Carroll input with all three of these diseases.
Okay, so all three of those diseases that you have just mentioned have one common denominator. They stem from a system that is too acidic and a system that is inflamed. So we have, and it is just different degrees of inflammation or acidity. So you have Crohn's, you have lupus, and you have leaky gut. They're all from the same basis, but different degrees. Like you have burns, third degree burns, second degree burns, first degree burns. So they're all really the same, but of different severity. So what we have to look at is what causes the acidity and the inflammation in the system, because unless you address the cause, you cannot really have permanent cure or manage your situation. So we have to look at what causes it, and then we can look at how we can manage it and how to effectively address those symptoms that you have just listed. So the cause, really, most of it comes from diet and lifestyle. Diet and lifestyle. These are diet and lifestyle diseases. These are not diseases that we are born with. And it takes years, sometimes decades, for it to develop and manifest itself. And therefore, the cure is not an overnight process. It's not a quick fix pill that you can just pop. It takes time for you to address and correct your diet and your lifestyle that caused that excess acidity and inflammation in the system to begin with. So we can go over some of the things, if you care to, you can interrupt at any point. Yes. Some of the things that cause that acidity and inflammation in the system. And so let's look at diet first. And the number one would be excess processed and refined foods in the diet. So we are talking about foods in a package. We're talking about the dry cereals, we're talking about the canned foods, anything that is packaged, anything that is processed, because the process of refinement and packaging, etc., the food is heated, and therefore it becomes a dead food because the enzymes are killed, the nutrients in it are really killed, and your body does not produce all the enzymes that it needs, and therefore you're eating food that's deficient of enzymes to help your body digest it and process it. And it sits in the stomach, in the gut too long, longer than it should. And it starts fermenting. So you have acid forming, you have inflammation forming, putrefaction starts, so these are the underlying causes. So the number one is the diet, and that would be excess processed and refined foods in the diet. A second thing that we can look at in the diet is meats and dairy. Now, I'm not telling you that you should not eat meat and dairy, but what I'm saying is meats and dairy and some of those concentrated proteins. Even we can look at vegetarian meats that are really concentrated. They isolate. So you take out all the protein from the soybean and you have it in a concentrated form in a veggie meat and you eat it. And your body was not made to process protein in that concentrated form. God made it in a way in the peas and in the beans, and it is not just protein, but it has some carbohydrate, it has some enzymes in it, and it has a slower release, so your body can better break it down, digest it, and assimilate it. But when you take those things that are more concentrated in terms of protein, like meats and dairies, and those concentrated, isolated veggie meat proteins or the protein powders, it produces a lot of acid. Your body needs more acid to produce, to break down and to process those proteins than other foods, like say fruits and vegetables. Fruits is just about 2 hours in terms of digestion, the time in the stomach, and the vegetables and so maybe 4 hours. But proteins, you're looking anywhere from 6 to 8 hours, you know, so these things can cause, and it allows the body to produce a lot more acid and inflammation to process that level of concentration of protein. Another thing that causes acid and inflammation that we have to be aware of is eating and drinking. Now, when you eat and you drink, you dilute the digestive juices, and therefore they become weak to digest the food in the stomach. So the digestive process is now prolonged. It takes much longer than it should again. And therefore fermentation starts and inflammation sets in, and purification, putrefaction sets in. So drinking, particularly if we drink cold drinks while we are eating, again, digestion has to stop and the body has to warm up that cold drink and process it, and then continue the digestive process. And all the time that food is sitting in the stomach, and inflammation and acidity, etc., sets in, because the body operates at a certain temperature. Everything is very precise in our body. It operates at a certain temperature. So those cold drinks have to be dealt with, or hot drinks have to be lowered in temperature. Cold drinks have to be brought up to the level of the temperature that the body can process it. So eating while you're drinking, again, adds to acidity and inflammation in the body. You should stop your drinking at least half an hour to an hour before eating, and you should start again drinking at least an hour after you have eaten, so that you give the digestive juices time to process the food in the stomach at full strength, as opposed to a diluted, weakened state. We can look at many other factors, again, that cause acidity and inflammation. We can look at too frequent eating. So eating in between meals and snacking. So you eat your breakfast, say at 9 o'clock, at 10, 11 o'clock, then you're snacking. It can be one peanut. Your body has to, the stomach would stop the digestive process that's already on its way for an hour or two, deal with this new thing that is thrown at it. And while it is dealing with it, what was already started digesting has to stop, and acidity sets in, inflammation sets in, fermentation sets in. So you have to allow the stomach, anytime you put something in the stomach, you have to allow the stomach at least 4 hours to process it and send it away into the intestinal tract, and let it rest before it can start working again. So we're looking at intervals of about 5 hours between our meals. So you have your breakfast about 5 hours before you have another meal, your lunch. In between, you can hydrate, which is good. You need to hydrate because digestion takes the most energy in all the processes in the body. And it needs hydration, proper hydration, to take place under, without much stress, efficiently. So hydration is important. So between your meals, at least an hour after, until the next meal, 5 hours thereafter, you are hydrating. And of course, hopefully you are keeping active. Another thing that causes acidity and inflammation is late night eating. So most people, they work, they come home 5, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, that's when they're having a big heavy meal. Now you have to understand nature, you have to understand how the body works. Upon rising in the morning until about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, this is when your digestive juices are the strongest. And this is when all your heavy eating should have taken place. So you have, that's why they say you have breakfast like a king, you have lunch, like a queen, and then you have supper like a pauper. So when that late night eating, if you eat a heavy meal, especially protein is involved, that takes so long and requires so much of a strength of digestive juices and more acid, the enzymes already and your digestive juices are already weakening. They're waning from 2 o'clock until, of course, going down to sunset, which you should be getting ready to retire. So the digestive juices are weak at that time, or they're not there at all, little of it. And you eat that heavy meal and your body doesn't have, the stomach doesn't have the capacity to digest it. And therefore, again, you're prolonging the digestive juices, the digestive process. It stays so long into the stomach, fermentation starts, and acidity is formed, inflammation is formed. I'll mention maybe 2 more if we have the time.
Sure, yeah.
Irregularity in eating. Our body likes to work on schedule, So preferably you eat your meals on schedule about the same time every day. You can give and take a little half hour, not more than an hour. So if 9 o'clock is your breakfast time, try to eat your breakfast 9 o'clock every morning. So the brain, the stomach, they expect a meal and a digestive process to take place 9 o'clock every morning. So they're prepared for that. And it also helps in your elimination, in your bowel movements, when irregularity is key in that also. And it knows that your next meal is coming, lunch, maybe about 5 hours afterward, after 9, maybe about 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock the latest. After that, should you eat, it should be light. It should be fruits, or it should be a smoothie, or if you're juicing, something that is light and something preferably in a liquid form, so that you're already meeting the digestive process halfway, because things have to be liquefied in order to be processed or to be assimilated in the body. Because we are made up of trillions of cells. You can't even see it with your naked eye. And these nutrients must enter those cells. So that's why mastication, thorough mastication, chewing your food is so important. And that's another thing that can cause acidity in the body, not chewing your food thoroughly, because there are no teeth in the stomach. Your processor is your teeth, your mouth. And that's where you should liquefy the food before you send it down. If you send it down in chunks and there are no teeth in the mouth, the stomach cannot process it. Again, you're stressing out the system and you're causing unnecessary acidity and inflammation. One last thing I would mention, and we can leave others as we go along, we can come back to the list, is food combinations. Food combination is very important too for persons that are prone to those diseases or have an acidic body or inflamed system to begin with. Food combination, meaning there are certain things that should not be eaten together. Because as I mentioned before, the fruits take a shorter time period, the shortest time period to digest. So you put it with, say, protein. So you eat a plate of fruits and then you have it with some egg, or you have it with a slice of meat, beef, whatever, turkey, chicken. The sugar in the fruits to begin with will cause fermentation of that protein. The protein needs 8 hours to digest. The fruits need only 2 hours to digest. So that combination is bad because there are different digestive times and you're causing acidity, unnecessary acidity and inflammation in the system. So you have to watch your food combination. So fruits should not be eaten with certain things because they cause acid. And the melons, especially the watermelons and the cantaloupes, these things are high in liquid and sugar, and you should not have them with your food because they cause fermentation because of the high level of liquid and sugar. So preferably you eat your fruits separately, and especially the melons by themselves because of the high sugar and liquid content, because they will cause inflammation with the rest of the food and acidity with the rest of the food, fermentation there. And that is not good. That will cause an inflamed system. I think I've gone through quite a bit already in terms of what causes the acidity and the inflammation in the system, which is a conducive environment and the basis for these autoimmune diseases. The underlying cause is acidity and inflammation. And unless you address that and correct the diet and the lifestyle that caused it in the first place, then you'll always be fighting those symptoms. In terms of lifestyle, it would be more stress. We have to manage stress. Stress causes a lot of acidity. Those negative chemicals that are released in the body when you're stressed or when you're angry or when you're carrying guilt or when you're upset all the time, these things suppress the system. It suppresses digestion. It upsets it. Your stomach turns acidic. So these things do interfere and interrupt the digestive system. Let the food sit in your stomach too long. And therefore, again, acidity sets in, inflammation sets in, putrefaction sets in. So we have to watch the stress in our lives. We have to manage it, or we have to eliminate it, whatever form it takes, whether it is anger, whether it is a toxic relationship, whether it is a stressful job. You have to address it because it's affecting your health long-term too. And it can even affect your longevity, how long you live.
Yeah, very good. Well said.
I've given you quite a mouthful.
Yep. But very informative. I mean, I learn every day, and I hope the viewers are learning quite a bit of information here. Thank you so much, Dr. Carol. We're just going to go over some of the treatments here. And again, we're just going to emphasize in the treatments some of what Dr. Carol has already mentioned. For Crohn's, a lack of vitamin C and E in the diet can aggravate the problem. Rarely does the disease strike once and go away. Most of the time, it will reoccur again for years, especially if we're not following a regimen diet. We can see the disease reoccurring. The ongoing scarring keeps reducing the bowel function. Again, you can have, as the disease progressive, you'll have a lot of scarring, which will make it very difficult for you to have a bowel movement and also a bowel function. If ignored, can lead to cancer. And again, we'll just see what Dr. Carol has to say on that.
Okay, yes, you mentioned scarring, and I'll explain to our viewers why scarring. Remember, the gastrointestinal tract is only one cell layer thick, one cell. And remember, I said we are made up of trillions of cells. You cannot even see a cell with your naked eye. And the lining of the gastrointestinal tract is only one cell thick. So that's very thin. So you understand now how the acid would erode it. And that's why people with those conditions end up with ulcers and the leaky gut, which is an ulcerated lining. So it's perforated, holes are formed, and therefore things that should not enter the bloodstream or the system are passing through and entering and causing, as you mentioned before, infection and causing those symptoms that those with those conditions are experiencing. So it is one cell thick, and that's why you have to make every effort in the diet to keep the acid low and to protect the mucus lining of the gastrointestinal tract. And how do you protect that? You mentioned the importance of vitamin C. Vitamin C maintains the integrity of the cell. That's what keeps it's like a glue. That's what keeps those cells together, because cells come together to form tissues, tissue together to form organs, organs together to form systems, and the systems form our body. So I'm giving it to you from the foundation up. So the cells, you have to maintain the integrity from the cellular level. And vitamin C is very important in maintaining the integrity of those cells. So you should always have a high level of vitamin C in your diet to maintain the integrity of your cells. And that mucous membrane, which lines that gastrointestinal tract, which is just one cell thin, you know, we have to take in those foods that line it and that help to maintain the integrity of our mucus system that protects the cell from that acid and inflammation. And some of those foods I'm sure you will go through in your treatment, like cabbage, the glutamine in cabbage, aloes, you know, slippery elm, things like that, that line the stomach and protect it from that acid so that it does not perforate and does not form holes in it. So vitamin C, vitamin D, these are very important in the digestive process.
So again, we can see the importance of having a fat-free diet because when you have Crohn's, it's very difficult for the body to absorb fat and also to tolerate a high-fat diet. Spices, mustard, vinegar, pepper, horseradish, all of these will cause irritants to the GI tract system. It's important that we drink distilled water, fresh juices, cabbage juice, like Dr. Carol mentioned, which is very good to line or coat the walls of the intestines. And very important again to stay away from junk food, processed foods, tobacco, caffeine, alcohol. Very important to stay away from these products. And again, we'll get Dr. Carol's input on that.
Okay, you mentioned distilled water, and why distilled water? I would like to just mention one or two things on that, comment on that. Why distilled water? Again, our body is part of the electromagnetic field all around us, the electromagnetic field. We are electric. There's electricity flowing in our body. This is how the brain communicates with the different organs in the body and gives them commands. Say, for instance, I have an apple. I took a bite of the apple. The brain, from the time you take the bite in the mouth and you activate your salivary glands and you activate the digestive system, the brain receives a message that she's eating an apple. It sends a message down to the stomach. An apple is coming. Prepare digestive juices for an apple. And there's a specific to prepare for an apple. If it is a piece of meat, it is quite different. It will be stronger because meat requires more acid. So our body is electric, and electricity flows in our body at a certain rate. And if the electricity is flowing too fast in our body, then digestion and assimilation cannot take place because it will bypass. It is too fast, and therefore there is not enough time to break down the food, to extract the nutrients from it, to assimilate it into the system, and therefore you tend to have a lot of diarrhea, etc. And you're eliminating and you're not nourishing, and therefore that's why you could be eating but being malnourished. If it is too slow, the electricity is moving too slow in the body, it's called conductivity, just like your electricity in your house. If it is moving too slow, then the digestion again is happening too slow in the body. And therefore, it is sitting too long and fermentation and acidity takes place. So there's a certain rate at which the electricity must flow through the body, and it is called conductivity. And there are meters that we use, calibrated, medical grade meters that we use to test the conductivity, the flow of electricity in the body, to know if it is too fast or know if it is too slow and how it affects or impacts on the digestion. But these are tests that are done during consultation, etc. When you know that, then you know whether or not your digestion is taking place too fast or too slow. Now, we are talking about distilled water. Why distilled water? Distilled water is the purest form of water, and it is the water that is closest in terms of flow of rate that matches that of the body. So it is the one that is most efficiently processed by the body. So it more efficiently hydrates the body. So it enters the cells more readily than other water, like the water you'd get in your regular pipe, which is processed water, which is water that has been stored and water that has flowed for miles before it reaches your house from the storage places and has been processed and chlorinated, etc. And it is destructured water, because water in its purest form has a certain molecular structure in order to enter the cells. So the destructured water, the mineral, the chemicals in the water, etc., all of those prevent the body from hydrating efficiently. So distilled water, when something is distilled, you put the water to boil, as it were, and then the water evaporates, and everything else, all impurities and all the impurities, etc., stays at the bottom, all the chemicals and so on. Only the pure water evaporates, and that's the distilled water. So you're drinking water in the purest form, and that can more readily enter the cell. So this is why when somebody's system is compromised, when they're sick, when they're detoxing, we always recommend distilled water. It works more efficiently with the system and more readily enters the cell and carries out the work that it should carry out. Now, you mentioned also fat, staying away from fat. And we have to understand too how the fat impacts digestion and impacts the system. The fats would inhibit your pancreas. The pancreas, again, is where your digestive enzymes are produced. And the fats would inhibit the production of those digestive enzymes. And therefore, you'll have difficulty digesting your food because you'll be deficient in digestive enzymes. And particularly for those that are diabetic, a lot of them, it is because of the excess fat that is prohibiting the pancreas from producing that insulin that you need to regulate the blood sugar, etc. So there's a direct correlation between the function and the health and of the pancreas and the fat intake and our digestion, because this is where in the pancreas that our digestive enzymes are produced.
Let's continue on to some of the treatments for Crohn's disease. Again, we're just going to emphasize what Dr. Carol said. Many eat non-acidic, fresh or cooked vegetables such as broccoli, cabbage, carrots, celery, kale, garlic, Brussels sprout. Never eat fried foods. Avoid overeating in order to reduce inflammation in the GI wall. Gluten tends to make the problem worse. Avoid barley, rye, spelt. Use gluten-free oats. Lactose intolerance is frequent with this disease. Avoid dairy. Charcoal will help control the diarrhea.
Okay, so let me try and see if I can remember them and go through them one by one. One thing with those conditions, which are acidic body and too much inflammation in the system, you should learn to simplify your meals. Say too much of a variety at one sitting at one meal, again, causes what? Too much acid and inflammation in the system, because the digestive juices are confused, because you have things that take different lengths of time to digest, and you're mixing just too much at the same time. So your meals should be as simple and as natural as possible. We should, if I could use the term mono, that would even be better, just one thing at a time. So if you're eating fruits, just eat a plate of fruits and that's it. And again, you should keep the sugar low, because sugar ferments and causes acidity and inflammation. So you should not eat too much of a high sugar content fruits. Or if you should eat just one, not more than one at the time, and don't eat it with anything else, because whatever else is eaten with, it will cause inflammation with these things, because the sugar would ferment it, especially the starches and the protein. So learn to simplify your foods, not too much of a variety one time. You mentioned some of the things, cabbage, and I'd mentioned before that it is the glutamine in the cabbage that coats and protects the mucous membrane against that acidity. Almonds. Another thing to people with those conditions, lupus and Crohn's, etc., many times they're deficient in calcium. And I'll explain why the deficiency in calcium is related to those diseases. Calcium is needed for the production of new cells. Now, every 6 months, we have a new body, as it were. Our body is constantly regenerating. New cells are being made all the time, every day, in that factory of ours, that system of ours. And if your body does not get the necessary required elements that it needs, the nutrients that it needs to make the new cells, it will hold on to the old cells for survival's sake, and it will not let go of them. And therefore, you are really operating on an expired system, operating on expired organs that are working very inefficiently, because they cannot regenerate, because you're not providing it with the nutrients and the elements, the support that it needs to generate new cells and to make new organs all the time. And this process cannot take place without adequate levels of calcium. Calcium is needed by the liver, where those new cells are manufactured. And the health of the liver is very important too for persons with that condition, because this is where new cells are made. And for particularly us women, we need 7 times more calcium than men because of menstruation and childbearing, because we are losing calcium, every month, and we have to replenish it. So if you're not adequately eating enough greens or almonds or things that are high in calcium, then you have to supplement on calcium. And it is not necessarily through drinking milk. The cows eat the grass, so you go and eat the greens and you get it firsthand in a purer state, which is more compatible to your system. And I'll explain that. We were made from the dust of the ground. So all the elements in the ground, in the dirt, are also in our body, because this is what we were made from. So anything that comes from the ground is more compatible to your system and more easily digested and broken down and assimilated. Anything not from the ground, the meats, etc., the dairy, etc., the processed and the packaged and the canned foods, these are harder on the system and require more acid and more work to process, because they're not readily available, bioavailable, or they're not readily assimilated by the body. And therefore, the body has to work harder to process them. So calcium is very important in the diet of people with those deficiencies, those illnesses, because you need the calcium levels, you need the vitamin D, you need the vitamin C to generate new cells, so the body can constantly be repairing itself and regenerating itself. And of course, we know our sources of vitamin C, of calcium, preferably plant-based, through your green vegetables, your kale and your spinach and your pak chow, etc. Almonds, almond milk. You can have it in the milk form, which is already liquefied and would help your system a little, as opposed to the hard nut itself, you know, which would be harder to process. As hard as protein, it takes a long time, 6-8 hours for those nuts to be processed. So if you can get it in the milk form or make your own milk in a pure form, that would be very important. Vitamin A is very important for persons with those conditions, because again, the vitamin A helps to protect the mucus lining and protect it from that acidity. And you can get vitamin A, we know, from the greens, also from the sweet potatoes, or what they call yams in North America. You know, so you can get that and other vegetables of like color, the squash, butternut squash, and those that are high in vitamin A. Folate, you know, is also important. So we have to know the body, know the requirements of the body, and know the foods that can meet those requirements, and have them as regular parts of the diet, so that we give the body what it means, what it needs for constant regeneration and repair and for maintenance. Because if the body does not get that nutrient support, then degeneration sets in, acidity sets in, inflammation sets in. All the processes are slowed down because we are working on what? We are working on compromised cells and systems and organs because they were not able to regenerate, and therefore they have expired. They are living over their 6 months, and therefore they're not working efficiently. And the whole system becomes compromised, and degeneration sets in. And all of these diseases that you have mentioned are just symptoms, malfunctioning cells, symptoms of degeneration. So they're not diseases per se. It's just a body that is toxic from the buildup of those degenerated cells. It's toxic and it's deficient. So if you clean the body, you detox, and if you give it the nutrient support that it needs in those elements in your food, in a proper, adequate diet, then the body will heal itself. It was made to heal itself and regenerate itself.
We're just going to continue with treatment again, just emphasizing what Dr. Carol said. It would be preferably to eat a green apple, which contains less sugar, instead of a red apple, which has more sugar. Right. Eat fruits by themselves, not too many fruits at a time to keep your sugar level low. Again, too much sugar we know can lead to inflammation. Another example, eating watermelon, which Dr. Carol said again, and almonds at the same time is not a good idea it's a poor combination. Watermelon takes 1 hour to digest, opposed to almonds that will take 5 hours to digest. Better to eat simple foods with similar digestive time, make it easier for the body to digest foods to avoid health problems, and fermentation, which leads to acidity, constipation, bloating, and gas. Wait at least 3 hours before eating fruits. Sweet fruits should not be eaten right after a meal. When tomatoes are cooked, they are acid forming and harmful to the internal organs. When eaten raw, they more act like an alkaline to the body and removing acid buildup in the body. And again, we'll have Dr. Carol emphasize on what I just read.
Okay, right. Before you had mentioned, I just came back to me, you had mentioned charcoal. For those with the diarrhea, charcoal is also good for the inflammation. It actually brings down inflammation in the system, because charcoal is soaks up, you know, whatever poisons or extra acid or inflammation in the system. So it not only would help with the diarrhea, but it would also help with the excess acid in the system and inflammation in the system. So charcoal is a good thing to take periodically for those that have high levels of acid and inflammation in the system. But again, you do not take charcoal with your meal or too close to your meal, because it will also soak up your nutrients. Acid, it is very powerful in terms of soaking up those excess toxins and so in the system. Another thing that we can do at home, which is baking soda. Yeah. If you have digestion is taking too long, you said bloating and gas and all of those things is an indication of indigestion, inefficient digestion. It could be, as I said, calcium deficiency, vitamin C deficiency, it could be vitamin D deficiency. All of those things are factors that contribute to the digestive process. So you can take, if you have all this excess acid in the stomach, you can take a little teaspoon of baking soda, pure baking soda without aluminum, put it in a glass of water, dissolve it and drink it, and it will neutralize that acid in the stomach almost instantly. So there are many little things that we can do at home every day, your lifestyle, to just neutralize that acid, keep it at low in the system, and keep the inflammation low. Lemon juice in your water when you hydrate, as much as it tastes acidic, but it has an alkaline effect internally, the lemon juice. So it's a good alkaliner. It's a good detoxer. Also, turmeric is very good in terms of keeping inflammation under low. Aloes, as I mentioned before. Of course, all of these things you have to take under guidance, because turmeric can also be a very effective blood thinner. So it depends on if your medication, depends on what other ailments or underlying issues that you have. You know, so you can take the turmeric for 1 week and then you stop it and then take it again for another week. But it's a very effective way of bringing the inflammation down in the system. And acid too, I mean, it is just a matter of common sense sometimes, just reasoning and working through things. If there is too much acid, you just drink water and dilute it. Drink a cup of water, you know, and you dilute it and try to neutralize it. Something as simple as that could help, you know. So it's just a matter of your diet. It's just a matter of spacing your meals. It's just a matter of no drinking with your meals, you know, and simplifying the diet, staying away from the refined foods, as you said, and being aware of what you eat, how you eat it, when you eat it, you know, and what is taking place in your body and what effect it is having, how it is being processed, you know, the cause to effect, because there's a cause for everything. It didn't just happen. It happened over time for a reason. There was a cause. So you just have to reason through it step by step and then reverse, go backwards and correct it the same way it happened. It happened through lifestyle and diet. So you correct that and then you would address those issues effectively.
Exactly. Thank you so much. Okay, so just to emphasize again, juicing, the importance of juicing, especially cabbage, which really coats or line the intestines, you know, juicing cucumbers, celery, spinach, kale, you know, leafy vegetables. A powerful healing again for the GI is for the stomach and the intestines, it's to rest, you know, rest your stomach, you know, probably skipping a meal, you know, giving your stomach time to heal, you know, especially to reduce all that acidity in the stomach or in the intestines. If you can fast probably for 1 day and probably just try only juices, you know, or just liquids, and giving our stomach time to rest and time to heal. You know, our diet should be a percentage of raw foods, you know, chew your food slowly. We cannot emphasize that again. The importance of chewing your food very slowly. And we'll see if Dr. Carol have anything to add on that.
Okay, you mentioned juicing and resting. I would like to comment just briefly on these two. Juicing, why? Because when you juice, you give your body an infusion of nutrients so that it can heal itself, so that the cells can repair and maintain and regenerate. So it's an infusion of nutrients, but not only an infusion of nutrients, but also it's almost like a pre-digestive process. Because when you eat your meal, if you do not chew it thoroughly, as I said, it's sitting in the stomach, takes longer to digest, stresses the system and causes acid. But when you juice, you are taking out the stress and the length of digestion from the system. So there's less of a chance or less of a period of time for acid to form an inflammation, because it's already in liquid form. So it can be the digestive process is a shorter period of time, and it enters the cells more readily, and you're nourishing the body more efficiently that way. So it is good for people that have those conditions, as you said, to rest the stomach. Take 2 meals a day and do what they call intermittent fasting. Let the stomach, the digestive tract, just rest and repair and maintain itself, and give it a little help in alleviating the stress and the length of time of the digestive process. And you can do that through juicing, and you can do that through some of the things that take longer to digest. You can cook them, you know, digestive process, as I'm talking about, but especially the vegetables, you don't want to overcook them because it's dead food, and the dead food causes, overcooked food will cause fermentation and acid in the system. So your vegetables and those things that you cook should always be on a low heat, and it should always be, your vegetable should be lightly steamed, so that there's still some life and enzymes in them, some nutrients maintained in them. But that little light cooking would be like a pre-digestive process, would help out the digestive time and shortening it, so that you give your body less time to produce that acid. So it alleviates it. And you mentioned rest. Rest is so important, because if you're not sleeping properly, if you're not getting adequate sleep, that's a stressor for the body. And that will cause acid and inflammation. So you have to sleep regularly. You have to give your body adequate time to sleep, 8 hours, 7 hours, so that the body can repair and maintain itself and regenerate itself, and get ready for the next day's work and stress and the next digestive process that it has to go through. So rest is very important. If you're not sleeping properly, if you have insomnia, again, logically, common sense, go through and see, what is it that's causing my insomnia? What is it? Is it electronics in my bedroom? Am I sleeping with a phone, with a television? Am I hyping up myself, looking at movies and so before I go to sleep? Is there lighting that's interrupting my sleep? Am I going to sleep angry, upset? What is it? Am I going to sleep with a heavy stomach? All of those things interrupt your sleep. Find out what is it that's interrupting your sleep, and make sure you eliminate them or minimize them, so that you can get the rest that you need. That's when the body maintains itself. That's when it regenerates. And the rest is very important for healing. That's why when you go to a hospital, you see nobody walking around in the hospital. No, they're lying down in a bed. They're resting. That's what the body needs to heal.
Okay, so moving on again, just emphasizing, staying away from inflammation-forming foods, processed foods, refined sugars, fried foods, dairy products. We cannot emphasize that more. Do not eat between meals, okay? We're just recapping. Do not eat fruits and vegetables together, causes inflammation. Greens juicing, highly recommended. Your greens, we listed so many, your spinach, your kale, you can juice. Get to know your body and get to know your triggers. Get to know things that will, you eat a meal and probably you feel such a buildup of acid after, your lips are burning, and and your body feel achy and burning. Again, know your body and know your triggers. Practice a plant-based diet. And that's our emphasis today, is really a plant-based diet that will bring healing. Look for blood and mucus in your stool as indicators, okay, that you need to tighten up on your diet, or something in your diet that probably needs to be changed. Okay, so we'll go back again to Dr. Carol.
Okay, you said that I would like to pick up on one thing that you said, know your body. And I would suggest to those with those conditions that they keep a log. Keep a log. Get yourself a journal, get yourself a notebook, whatever, a folder with some papers. You date it. Today's Sunday. Today's what date? Sunday, May 30th. Put 9 a.m. breakfast. I had a bowl of oats with some raisins, a banana, a handful of nuts, whatever. Lunch, what did I have? Some rice and peas, some cabbage, some tofu. Supper time, 7 o'clock, I had a smoothie. Log your meals. So if you do that, you time it and you log it, then you can see the spacing. Then you can see also, as you said, what your triggers are. So you realize that, okay, I ate oats, but I had raisins with it. So maybe it was the sugar in the raisins, because I should not have had fruits with the grain. So the sugar in the raisin probably caused that fermentation that caused it hard for the grain to be digested. So next time, take out the raisin and eat just the grain with the nuts. Just make it in some almond milk and see how that goes, so that you minimize the amount of sugar that you have in there that would not cause fermentation and acid. The same thing with your lunch. Look at it and see, what did I have for lunch? That combination was not good for me. Why did I put this and that together? And then you keep changing it until you realize what your triggers are, what caused that acid, what caused that flare up for that day. And then you keep on adjusting until you find what's right for your body. I may eat something and it wouldn't bother me. My husband and I, he has stronger digestive juices. He may eat something and it does not bother him at all. And I'll eat it and it bothers me. It stays in my stomach and it sits in my stomach and it wouldn't digest, because we are different. Health is very individualized. One shoe does not fit all. Yeah. There are some general principles that are applicable, universally to everybody, the 8 laws of health. and you see which one that you're violating, because they're all important, they're foundational. But apart from that, we are very individual. They're hereditary tendencies, you know, and conditions, you know, as I said before, your lifestyle, etc. Our systems, our makeup are different. Our diet and so a different culture, you know, contribution. So we have to know our body, and a good way to get to know that, what your triggers are, is to keep a log. Do it for at least a week, or if you can for a month, preferably. All your meal times, you date it, you time it, and you list everything that you ate, so that you can see when you get that acid, when you get that flare up, what was in the diet, and start eliminating, start looking at it and evaluating it, and start adjusting, so that you can find out what your triggers are and eliminate them.
Okay, very good. So again, we can see that stress again is really a number one killer, you know, really causes inflammation. And I would really suggest, you know, exercising, going for a walk, deep breathing exercises to really help, you know, control that stress. You know, do whatever you have to do, you know, to really eliminate that stress. Read a book, you know, find some quiet time, you know, treat yourself, you know, to really try all means to reduce that stress. Again, some herbs that we can use are red clover, golden seal, echinacea, you know. So I don't know if Dr. Carol have any more herbs that that's good for these diseases.
Well, I had mentioned before the lemon in the water, which has an alkaline effect on the stomach. Things that are cooling, aloes. You had mentioned cucumbers before, that in your juicing, and turmeric to keep the inflammation and the low. Ginger also. All these are anti-inflammatory things that we can take. So, for those, you said with the leaky gut, you're prone to infection. Garlic is very good for that. It's like a disinfectant to the body. The allicin in there, you know, antiviral, antibacterial, you know, so you can include garlic in your diet to keep infections at bay, you know, to help your body fight those things. But again, it is to be aware of what you're eating and what would cause acid in the system and compromise the walls of your gut, which is just one cell thick, and to eat things that would maintain the integrity of your cells and of your mucous membrane, that lining. So the aloes, as I said, lemons, lemon in the water, turmeric, ginger, all of those are anti-inflammatory things. Slippery M, we had mentioned before, because, you know, these things are mucousy. You can tell even from the texture of them and the constitution of them. And they also help line the system and protect it from that acid buildup in the system. And water, of course, hydration is key. And there is a system of hydration. It is not just gulping down a whole 16-ounce bottle of water. No, there is a rule of thumb, a general rule of thumb, about half your body weight. So I'm 120 pounds. So about 60 ounces of fluid is your requirement for the day, more or less. You know, it depends again on your level of activity. It depends again, if you're outdoors and you're sweating, then of course you up it a bit to make up for that. But hydration is key. Almost over 75% of the body is water. Of the brain is a high percentage. You need, digestion needs adequate levels of hydration. If not, you're stressing the system. And that's so important for people with hypertension and other, you know, heart conditions, and so to keep that stress off those systems with proper hydration. So you determine from your body weight how much liquid or water that you need for the day. For me, as I said, it's about 60 ounces. That's an equivalent of about what, 10 ounce, 10 ounce glasses. But that would be not just water. That'd be water, that'd be teas, and that would be, if you're juicing, it's your liquid intake. So it's water plus whatever else that you're taking. And preferably, you take it upon rising. As I said, you stop about half an hour before your meals, and you start back about an hour after your meals. You do not drink and eat to dilute the digestive juices, to weaken them, and to prolong the digestive process. So you take at least 4 ounces every 15 minutes. So you're constantly hydrating the body and keeping your level of your hydration up, so that all the processes in the body can take place at ease and not under duress, not under stress, as opposed to just gulping a bottle and then no hydration again for a few hours, and then you gulp another one. When the body can only process about 4 ounces at a time. So you gulp down 16 ounces, it will process about what, depends on your level of activity or level of dehydration, 4-6 ounces, and then to just flush out the rest, and you'll be urinating often. every 15 minutes, you take about 4 ounces. So you're constantly hydrating the body so all the processes can take place at ease in the body. And that's throughout your waking hours, 10 hours or how many hours that you're awake at the body. Don't gulp. There is a saying, you know, that you eat your water and you drink your food. Eat your water and drink your food. So even your water has to be processed. So it must stay in your mouth a little, swish around with your saliva, you know, and you eat your water, drink it down slowly, 4 ounces every 50 minutes throughout the day. You're constantly hydrating so that the processes can take place at ease.
Very good. Very good. We want to thank Dr. Carol so much for the knowledge that she has given us today. It was an eye-opener, and I hope so many of you out there will inspired and blessed and will practice some of the simple things that can give healing. We will just ask Dr. Carol to give the viewers how she can be rich, because I'm telling you, Dr. Carol is very good in knowing the body. She knows the body in and out. She knows the herbs. She knows exactly how to treat the body. She's had the experience. She has the knowledge. You will be blessed. You will on your road to a healing process if you give Dr. Carol a chance to in some form of consultation where she can set you on the right path to healing. So Dr. Carol, if you can just give the viewers how you can be reached.
Okay, it is, you can email me. That's the preferred way. I do not want to flood my phone. I do consultations on the phone all the time. So email me at RAYNIALC@hotmail.com. NIA. Pleasure being with you. I wish everyone good health. Just take care of your body. Your body, know your body. You know, work with your body, work with nature, with the natural way that it was made to work. And anytime you violate the body, you know, there are consequences that we pay for, you know. So just work with the body and the body will work with you.
Exactly. And like I said early on, know your triggers. You know what will increase your inflammation. I mean, especially inflammation causing foods, you know what causes triggers for you, you know. And we'll just quickly go over some encouraging texts. Genesis 1:29. Then God said, look, I have given you every seed-bearing plant throughout the earth and all the fruit trees for your food. Again, we can look at it says in Genesis 1:11, then God said, let the land sprout with vegetation, every sort of seed-bearing plant and trees that grow bearing fruit. These seeds will then produce the kind of plants and trees from which they come. And that is what happened. Again, we can see in Genesis 2:7. Then the Lord God formed man from the dust of the ground. He breathed the breath of life into his nostrils, and man became a living person. And that's how Dr. Carol was saying, Earth is so close to the makeup of our body, and we can see why. Again, we have Revelation 22:2. It says, it flowed down the center of the main stream. On each side of the river grew a tree of life, bearing 12 crops of fruits, with a fresh crop each month. The leaves were used for medicines to heal the nation. And that is what we have to take advantage of. We have so much in our environment. We have so much in our houses, so much in our pantries that we don't even know that they are healing medicines. You know, why not give nature a try? I mean, and sometimes if we have tried everything and we're almost to the point of giving up, why don't we give nature and natural medicines a try? Again, and some of the sources that was used today, again, a book that I highly recommend, Healing Inflammatory Bowel Disease by Paul Neeson. Again, we have Natural Remedies from the Encyclopedia by Vance Farrell. Check them out. Try everything you can to heal your body. Your body is a healing mechanism. And let us, with God's guidance, we know we can do it. I don't know if Dr. Carol have any last final remarks. And we want to thank Dr. Carol so much again for taking some time of her busy schedule to be with us, to share some inspiring knowledge. And please take advantage in emailing Dr. Carol. This is my heart desire for you today, and we'll give Dr. Carol the last closing remarks.
It was a pleasure being with you, and I hope that I've been of some help, as you said, an inspiration to somebody out there to take responsibility for your health. Your health is your responsibility. It is not the responsibility of the doctor, the clinic, or the hospital. It is your responsibility to educate yourself as to how to take care of your health. And as you said, my preference is to do it naturally with what God provided for us out there, that are more compatible to our bodies as opposed to taking drugs. The drugs themselves cause a lot of acid and inflammation in the body. So those persons that are on drugs, it is a two-edged sword. You know, you take it to bring down the inflammation and acid, but yes, it is causing it on the other hand. So those that are on drugs will have to try to naturally heal yourself and wean yourself off them, because you will always be, your body will always be reacting to those toxic materials that you're putting into your system. You know, so find a way naturally, you know, to heal yourself. I'm not telling you to get off your medication. No, that has to be done in consultation with your doctor. But I'm saying there are natural alternatives that you can at least try, because the side effects are much less or nil, you know, compared to the drugs that are out there. Every drug out there has a side effect, and it has an effect on the body and consequences. You know, so I'd encourage you to make food your medicine and make medicine your food. Make food your medicine, as Hippocrates said, and make food your medicine and make medicine your food. Try to do it naturally. Work with the body, work with nature, and the results will be much more long lasting.
Yep. Thank you so much again, Dr. Carol. Thank you so much, viewers, for tuning in. And I hope you were blessed, and I hope you receive information on Crohn's disease, leaky gut, and also lupus. Send me a comment, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks again for tuning in. Bye. God bless.